All right, here we go. We're going to now do the notes for 5-7, which is putting some of these skills that we've done and putting it into solving equations. We're doing equations of the form x over a equals c. And we've already done these equations, but now we're going to throw some fractions into there and use all of our fraction skills. So you'll remember from before, you're trying to isolate the x. So if the x is being multiplied by a, I'm sorry, let's try that again. If your x is being divided by a, how do you undo dividing by a? You multiply by a. So that is going to be our basic step with a little bit of a twist here. We're going to be multiplying both sides of the equal sign by the same number. Let's see that in action. So here, if we look at 1a, so what's happening? We need to isolate or get the a alone. It's right now being divided by -3. So what we want to do is we want to get rid of that by multiplying both sides of my equal sign by -3. So what's that going to look like? Well, it's going to be a over -3 times -3 over 1. I put it over 1 because I'm dealing with a fraction, is equal to -16 times -3. So see how I multiplied both sides of my equal sign by a -3. So look what happens. Those cancel, and I'm just left with a, which is exactly what I needed, and -16 times -3 is positive 48. And that's my answer. Now, let's go look at the next question. Now, this has got some more fractions that we're going to have to do some simplifying. For example, right here, 4 squared I know is 16. And right here, I have to combine these two like terms. So I'm just going to use some scrap up here. I'm going to do this problem. I'm going to do 1/8 plus 1/16. What's my common denominator? Well, my common denominator is going to be 16. So if I rewrite the first fraction, I have to multiply top and bottom by 2 to make the denominator a 16. And notice the second fraction is already over 16, so I don't need to do any multiplication. So what does that give me? That gives me 2/16 plus 1/16. When I add, I'm going to get 3/16. So 1/8 plus 1/16 became 3/16. Now I want to show you something with this one, and we could have actually used this with 1a too. Notice that what I have here is I have a proportion. We talked about a proportion before. A proportion is two ratios or fractions that are equal to one another. I have that. Do you remember what's the way that an easier way we could solve a proportion? We can cross multiply. So I can go across here and multiply, and I get 16 times a. I can go across here and multiply, and 16 times 3 is 48. I don't know if you can hear it, but my cat is meowing outside the door. She wants in desperately, but we're ignoring her. All right, how do I solve this? Well, these are being multiplied, so I divide both sides by 16. And a is equal to 3. So that's another option to solve many of these equations. Now, if we look down at C, we can't do that because this is not a proportion as it stands. Now look at this one. So we have -2/3 times a. So what's happening? The a is being multiplied by -2/3. How do we undo multiplying by -2/3? We have to divide both sides of my equal sign by -2/3. That looks terrible, doesn't it? But it's not as bad as it looks. So these will cancel, and I'm left with a equals. Now remember, this is a complex fraction. You've already seen the video with complex fractions. This is really a division problem. So let's write it as a division problem. It is 6 divided by negative 2/3. So now we're just going to simplify. So how do I do this? Well, I'm going to put this 6 over 1 because I'm dealing with fractions. And I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, which is negative 3 over 2. And remember the negative, it doesn't matter where it is. Let's see what I can do to cancel. Oops, I need some lead. Notice I can cancel here. So this 2 divides into 2 once, and 2 divides into 6 3 times. So I have 3 times negative 3, which is negative 9. All right, let's look at D. Now D, if I put a 1 under the 6, do you see where I'm looking at a proportion? So why don't we go ahead and let's solve this using cross multiplication. So if I cross multiply this way, I'm going to get 1 times A, which is A, is equal to, if I cross multiply this way, it's going to be negative 6 times 20, which is negative 120. Now, just so you know, I'm going to do that exact problem again using the other method. So the other method would say, what's happening to the A? It's being divided by 20. So how do I undo dividing by 20? I'm going to multiply both sides of my equal sign by 20. So it would be negative 6 times 20 equals A over 20 times 20. What do I get when I multiply these? I get negative 120. And again, because I'm dealing with fractions here, I put a 1 under here. The 20s cancel, and I have A, and I end up with the exact same answer. Doesn't matter which method you use. All right, let's go ahead and let's do E. Now you'll notice that C and E are very, very similar. They're the same type of problem, so we're going to do them the exact same way. So what's happening right here between the negative 2/9 and the y? They are being multiplied together. So how do I undo multiplying by negative 2/9? I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2/9. Now what you might want to do here is pause the video, go through and do your problem on your own, get an answer, and then come back and check it. I'm going to continue. These cancel. So y is equal to, this is a big old division problem. So it's negative 12 divided by negative 2/9, which is negative 12 over 1 times negative 9 over 2. Now you should know already your answer is going to be positive because a negative times a negative is positive. We can cancel this 2 into this 12, which gives me 6. So the answer is going to be positive 54. And there's the end of your notes for 5.7.